Thanks for joining me. Let's look at top stories at this hour. Mayor says minor damage caused by drone raid in Russia. 9 injured in Florida shooting. The Pentagon says China rejects meeting with the U.S. defense. Ukraine seeks border demilitarization with Russia, and female Kishida sacks son over a misconduct. On Russia-Ukraine war, Moscow, the Russian capital, has been hit by a sporadic drone attack that has caused minor damage to buildings and no casualties, the city's mayor said. On Tuesday, Moscow's mayor Sergei Sobyanin said in a statement this morning at dawn, a drone attack caused minor damage to several buildings. All the city's emergency services are on the scene. No one has been seriously injured so far. Moscow, located over 1,000 kilometers, 620 miles from Ukraine, has only barely been the aim of drone attacks since the beginning of the conflicts in Ukraine, even though such raids have become more common elsewhere in Russia. Andrei Vorobyov, governor of the Moscow region, said on Telegram that many drones were shot down on their approach to Moscow. It was not immediately clear who launched the drones. According to more reports, some residents of a building on Moscow's Provzoyunzhanaya street in the city's south were being evacuated. Footage is purported to show drones flying overhead being shot down and debris in the ground from an apparent effect on tall building. According to several reports, 4 to 10 drones were shot down. 9 people were injured when gunfire flared along a beachside promenade in Hollywood, Florida, sending people hysterically running for cover along the crowded beach during the Memorial Day holiday in the United States. Police spokesperson Diana Bitneshi said many of those wounded on Monday evening were taken to a children's hospital. Bitneshi said 4 minors aged between 1 and 17 were hit, along with 5 adults between 25 and 65 years. One was in surgery late on Monday night, while the others were stable, she said. The shooting took place shortly before 7 p.m. when a fight broke out and at least one gun was pulled and shots were fired, according to her. At least one person was in custody, but police were looking for more suspects. Police Chief Chris O'Brien said thousands of people were in the area and dozens of police officers responded, including some who were nearby. It's unfortunate we have law-abiding citizens who come to our beaches and that gets interrupted by a group of criminals. Reports said emergency medical crews were responding and providing aid to injured people. Police said there will be heavy presence of officers as the investigation continues. Officials also set up an area for family members to reunite. Hollywood Mayor Josh Levy said in a statement, "Thank you to the Good Samaritans, paramedics, police and emergency room doctors and nurses for their immediate response to aid the victims of today's shootings." According to reports, the mayor was quoted saying, "Our beach has millions of beachgoers as a year. It's a very popular and beautiful destination. Ordinarily, it's peaceful beach. A popular beach destination, Hollywood was expecting to see more visitors than usual because of the Memorial Day holiday." Now, according to the Pentagon, China has declined a U.S. invitation for a meeting in Singapore between Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and his Chinese counterpart Li Shangfu. Overnight, the PRC informed the U.S. that they have declined our early May invitation for Secretary Austin to meet with PRC Minister of National Defense Li Shangfu in Singapore this week. Pentagon spokesman Brigadier General Pat Ryder said in a statement on Monday, referring to the country by the initials of its official name, the People's Republic of China. The PRC's concerning unwillingness to engage in meaningful military-to-military discussions will not diminish the Defense Department's commitment to seeking open lines of communication with the People's Liberation Army, Ryder added. White House spokesman John Kirby last week said there were deliberations underway to initiate talks between Austin and his Chinese counterpart, who was appointed defense minister in March. The prospect of a meeting between them was being closely watched given rising tensions in the region and the growing prickly relationship between Washington and Beijing over issues from Taiwan to trade and human rights. Singapore-based security analyst Ian Story said China's decision did not sit well. At a time of rising U.S.-China tensions, General Lee's refusal to meet his American counterpart will fray regional nerves even further, Story said, according to reports. Austin and Lee will both be in Singapore for the Shangri-La Dialogue In annual security summit, which is set to start on Friday, he met Li's predecessors Wei Feng on the sidelines of the event last year. Chinese officials have yet to confirm the decision, but tensions have surged this year, particularly over an alleged Chinese spy balloon that was shot down by a U.S. warplane after crossing into U.S. airspace. Li has also been subject to U.S. sanctions since 2018 over the purchase of combat aircraft and equipment from Russia's main arms exporter, Rosoboron Export. On Wednesday, Li, who is due to arrive in Singapore, also sits on the Central Military Commission, China's top defense body that is led by President Xi Jinping. Citing the Defense Ministry, reports said he will deliver a speech on China's latest security initiative and hold some bilateral meetings with relevant countries. Austin is traveling first to Japan, where he will hold talks with his Japanese counterpart Yasukazu Hamada before visiting U.S. troops stationed in the country. He will then fly to Singapore, where he will address the summit on Saturday morning and meet with major leaders to advance U.S. defense partnerships across the region in support of our shared vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific anchored in ASEAN centrality, according to the Pentagon, referring to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, an economic and political coalition of 10 member states in Southeast Asia. Austin will travel to India and then to France after Singapore, where he will join events commemorating the 79th anniversary of D-Day. Again, on Russian-Ukraine war, an advisor to Ukraine's presidential office has said a demilitarized zone between 100 and 120 kilometers wide, 62 to 75 miles, should be established in Russian border territory with Ukraine as part of any post-war settlement. Mikhailo Podolyak, the advisor to the head of office of the president of Ukraine, said the demilitarized zone should cover the Russian regions of Belgorod, Bryansk, Kursk and Rostov in order to project adjacent territories in Ukraine. He wrote in a tweet on Monday, to ensure real security for residents of Kharkiv, Chernihiv, Sumy, Zaporizhia, Luhansk and Donetsk regions and protect them from shelling, it will be necessary to introduce a demilitarization zone of 100 to 120 kilometers. Such a zone, which cannot be used or occupied by military forces, will possibly need a mandatory international control contingent at the first stage, Podolyak said. A demilitarized zone should be a key topic of a post-war settlement, said the presidential advisor, adding that such a buffer will prevent the recurrence of aggression in the future. The International Committee of the Red Cross says there are detailed rules for the creation and recognition of demilitarized zones, and the concept is not far removed from hospital zones and other areas deemed neutral during conflicts. Also on Monday, an aide to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukraine had no interest in any ceasefire that locks in Russian territorial grains. On politics in Japan, Fumio Kishida, Japanese Prime Minister, has said that he will remove his son from the position of his executive secretary amidst rising public anger over a private party held at his official residence last year. Kishida said, according to reports on Monday, that his son Shotaro will step down as executive secretary for political affairs due to inappropriate behavior. The move came after the weekly Shukan Bunshan magazine published photos showing Kishida's son and his relatives at the Prime Minister's official residence attending a year-end party on December 30th. The photos showed the guests posing on red carpet stairs in an imitation of the group photos taken of newly appointed cabinets, with the younger Kishida at the center of the position reserved for the Prime Minister. Other photos showed guests standing at the podium as if holding a news conference. His behavior at a public space was inappropriate as someone who is in an official position as a political aide. I've decided to replace him for the accountability, Kishida said on Monday night. He said his son will be replaced by another secretary, Takoyashi Yamamoto, on Thursday. Kishida acknowledged that he had briefly greeted the guests but said he did not stay at the dinner party. He said he severely reprimanded his son for the event, but that failed to quell ongoing criticism from opposition legislators and public outrage which have been pushed down to support his ratings. Kishida appointed his son as policy secretary, one of 8 secretary posts for the Prime Minister, in October. The appointment, seen as a step in grooming him as his heir, was criticized as nepotism, which is common in Japanese politics, long dominated by hereditary lawmakers. Shotaro Kishida was formerly his father's private secretary. It was not the first time Kishida's son has come under fire for making use of his official position for private activities. He was reprimanded for using embassy cars for private sightseeing in Britain and Paris, and for the buying souvenirs for cabinet members at a luxury department store in London, where he accompanied his father on trips. Kishida has also lost 4 ministers in 3 months over allegations of financial irregularities or links to the controversial Unification Church. And here are more stories. Zelensky lauds defense after massive air attack. Russia has fired a wave of air attacks in Kyiv just hours of the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky applauded the country's air defense units for saving hundreds of lives by shooting down a barrage of Russian drones and missiles targeted at the capital and other locations. In the early hours of Tuesday morning, air defense systems in Kyiv were engaged in shooting down incoming targets, city officials said, as air raid sirens blared in numerous regions. A massive attack, Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko said on the Telegram messaging app, "Do not leave shelters." Klitschko said that a 27-year-old woman was taken to hospital after sustaining injuries in southwestern Holozivsky district. He later reported that one person had been killed in the newest Russian air raid. Kyiv's military administration officials said that air defense systems were engaging and destroying the incoming projectiles, and falling debris had hit many districts of the capital, including the historic Podil and Pechersky neighborhoods. Early on Tuesday, residents of high-rise apartment building were being evacuated after falling debris sparked a fire, Klitschko said, calling it a massive attack launched in several waves. Cyril Popko, the head of Kyiv's military administration, said the Russia conducted the assault using Iranian-made Shahed drones and that more than 20 had been shot down. Tuesday's attack, the third in 24 hours, marks Russia's 17th aerial assault on the capital this month, following 2 attacks on Monday, which included a rare daytime strike that had forced people to seek shelter underground and sent school children fleeing Kyiv streets for safety. Zelensky said in his nightly address on Monday that while some of the Russian aerial attacks, which he branded evil, had managed to get through Ukraine's defenses, most of the drones and missiles had been shot down. The Institute for the Study of War, a think tank based in Washington, D.C., said overnight on Sunday and Monday, and during the daytime attack on Monday, Russia had launched 11 Iskander ballistic missiles, 38 Shahed drones, and 40 cruise missiles. In African scenes, Senegal protests erupts over opposition leader. On Monday, demonstrators have clashed with security forces in the Senegalese capital of Dakar, burning cars and building barricades to protest the treatment of opposition leader Ousmane Sonko, who is on trial for charges of rape. Just one day prior, Sonko, founder of the left-leaning Pastef party, had tried to lead what he called a caravan de La Liberté, or a freedom caravan, from the town of Zinkanko, where he serves as mayor, to Dakar. But the convoy of vehicles was considered illegal and diverted to home Sonko has in Dakar. Antoine Felix Diome, Interior Minister, denied that Sonko has been detained, but supporters and fellow politicians have claimed that security forces stopped them from visiting him. Police also allegedly blocked roads around Sonko's residence in Dakar's Gorky district. Those restrictions have raised concerns about Sonko's rights and the fate of Senegal's upcoming 2024 presidential election, in which the Pastef leader is a candidate. The restrictions imposed on Ousmane Sonko's freedom to come and go without notification are illegal and must end, the Senegalese branch of the rights group Amnesty International posted on Twitter, calling on authorities to follow the rule of law. El Malik Ndaye, the National Secretary of Communications for Pastef, issued a strongly worded declaration on his own Twitter account, dubbing the Pastef candidate President Sonko. Ndaye accused the Senegalese authorities of confiscating Sonko's phones, laptop, and personal effects and barricading his house. Interior Minister Diome has responded to the criticism, saying that it is the prerogative of the state to maintain public order and preserve the security of people and property. In protest, supporters allegedly threw rocks at police outside Sonko's home, while law enforcement responded with tear gas. It was the newest surge of violence in the heated rivalry between Sonko and present President Macky Sall, a centrist representing the Alliance for Republic Party. Let's take a short break. When I come back, I'll bring you more stories. Stay with us. You're welcome back. Here are more stories from Nigeria. Asiwaju Tinubu sworn in as Nigeria's new leader. Yesterday, President Bola Tinubu took the oath of office in Abuja as Nigeria's 16th president and quickly swung into action, declaring in his inaugural speech an end to the country's controversial petrol subsidy. The subsidy had over the years been a burden that stopped the economy by stripping it of badly needed development funds. The president signaled a resolve to push for economic reforms. He promised to unite the country and prioritize security. No fewer than 7 African presidents were present at the colorful inauguration ceremony. Also yesterday, around 10 countries officially presented their goodwill messages and letters of support and solidarity to Tinubu at the State House Abuja, while representatives of the United Kingdom, United States and Saudi Arabia held bilateral meetings with Tinubu. The UK government sent warmest congratulations to Tinubu and Shettima on their inauguration in a statement by His Majesty King Charles III. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, congratulated the former Lagos State Governor on his inauguration as president. Gbajabiamila said Tinubu's tenure will mark a period of renewed hope for Nigeria. Meanwhile, Tinubu, in his inaugural address, gave us a reason for the discontinuation of fuel subsidy, the fact that the immediate past administration of President Muhammadu Buhari made no provision for it in the 2023 budget. Tinubu noted that subsidy could no longer justify its ever-increasing cost in the wake of limited resources. He lauded the decision of the outgoing administration to phase out the petrol subsidy regime, which he noted had increasingly profited the rich at the expense of the poor, which the policy originally targeted. The president said his administration was targeting a higher gross domestic product (GDP) growth of not less than 6%, which according to him would significantly reduce unemployment. To accomplish the growth target, Tinubu said that new administration will institute a budgetary reform that will stimulate the economy without engendering inflation. The government will also institute an industrial policy that will utilize the full range of fiscal measures to promote domestic manufacturing and lessen import dependency, the new president said. The colorful event, which took place at the Eagle Square, which was filled to capacity, had in attendance Rwandan President Paul Kagame, his Liberian counterpart George Weah, President Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia, President Samia Hassan of Tanzania, and President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, among others. Vice Premier Peng King-hwa, who is vice chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress and special envoy of the Chinese President Xi Jinping, also graced the occasion. United States President Joe Biden was represented by a delegation led by Secretary of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, Honorable Marcia L. Fudge. Other members of the delegation at the inauguration included Mr. Dave Green, Judge Affairs, U.S. Embassy Abuja, Honorable Sidney Kamlaja Dove, United States Representative, California, Honorable Marisa Lago, Under-Secretary of Commerce for International Trade, U.S. Department of Commerce, and General Michael E. Langley, Commander of U.S. Africa Command. Also present were U.S. Honorable Enoti Ebong, Director, U.S. Trade and Development Agency, Honorable Mary Catherine Fee, Assistant Secretary of State of the Bureau of African Affairs, U.S. Department of State, the Honorable Judah Vermont, Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director for African Affairs, National Security Council, and the Honorable Monde Muyangwa, Assistant Administrator for the Bureau for Africa, U.S. Agency for International Development. Those at the occasion also included Senate President Dr. Ahmed Lawan, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, former President Goodluck Jonathan, Chairman of Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, President of African Development Bank, AFDB, Akinwumi Adesina. The dignitaries included also Chief of Defense Staff, Service Chiefs, the Inspector General of Police, Ministers, Chairman of the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, Senator Demo Abdullahi, traditional rulers, clergymen, among others. The program kicked off in earnest about 10:12 a.m. with the arrival of immediate past President Muhammadu Buhari. And finally on the news, ex-President Buhari returns to Daura. Immediate ex-President Muhammadu Buhari was well received in Daura, town of Katsina State, after he handed over governance to Ahmed Bola Tinubu in Abuja yesterday. Arriving in Daura, his hometown, in a helicopter about 1:10 p.m. with his wife Aisha Buhari, son Yusuf Buhari, and daughters Hanan Buhari and Halima Buhari. Also with him, was his nephew, Musa Haru, and Hadi Siriaki, and immediate past aviation minister as well as Minister of Communication, Professor Isa Pantami. Residents of Daura came out en masse to receive him from the helipad ground, trekking through the city center before retiring to his home at Government Reserve Area GRA in Daura. The people sang songs of solidarity to welcome him home after 8 years of serving the country. Buhari, who earlier arrived at Umaru Musa Yar'Adua International Airport, Katsina, aboard Air Force One, the president's official aircraft, was received by Governor Umar Diko Rada and other top government officials. Buhari was first elected in 2015 and re-elected in 2019 and handed over to Bola Tinubu on Monday morning in Abuja to retire to his home state, Daura in Katsina State. Another look at the top stories. Mayo says minor damage caused by drone raid in Russia. 9 injured in Florida shooting. Pentagon says China rejects meeting with the U.S. defense. And Ukraine seeks border demilitarization with Russia. And female Kishida Saxon over misconduct. Thanks for watching. I am Lois Tureki.